Hello and welcome to the Week 4 edition of Coach's Corner here on Rivalry Family Media. Alongside Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I'm Todd Robbins. Happy to have you along with us here at Facebook.com/Media Rivalry after a tough week for Leominster High School in week number 3 as they drop a tough 14-12 battle at Shrewsbury, falling to 0-2 on what has been a strange season, only to get weirder across central Massachusetts. We'll have more on that as we continue. This week 4, Leominster travels to Wachusett on Friday night, a team having a phenomenal year. We'll preview more on that coming up. But Coach, first, we've got to talk about in this year of challenges already, and we've well chronicled that. It felt like this week possessed that moment where, despite everything else that was going on, at the end of the football game, you had a chance to turn things around. You had the play that you needed. And then there were some things that derailed the conversation, 2 of them being flags in particular, both coming on the 2 scores, both for some form of a celebration penalty and changing what would have been point after attempts from the 2.5 yard line back to the 18-yard line and dramatically changing what the possibilities are, both in play call and in the mission at that moment in time. Creates a lot more space, gives the defense some more room to work with. Ultimately, Rodriguez gets blocked on point after number 1. Despite all of that, you come back, you get the play you need, you get point after number 2. Point after number 2 fails after a second flag. Obviously, I want to help folks understand the circumstances here. Let's start first just with what you were told about the call and what obviously the lesson to be learned from the 2 circumstances are.
Sure. From both calls, it was unsportsmanlike celebration in the end zone. Upon looking back at it, and I'm all for respecting the rules and playing a game in a respectful way. Obviously, we don't taunt our opponents. We go out there, we play the game. I want our guys to be excited to make good plays, all within the rules, obviously. But we got flagged twice for unsportsmanlike celebration. And going back and reviewing it, I have a tough time. If I'm a ref in that situation, I'm not sure if I'm making that call. Easy for me to say in this chair. But I like to take into account the fact that these kids have gone through a lot in a year and a half. They've worked extremely hard, jumped through hoops to get to this situation, this point, in the season. And to have a game, that was well played on both sides. I thought Shrewsbury played a great game. I thought we did some great things as well. And to have the game, kind of come down to that situation, which was, in my mind, at the very least, highly questionable, those flags. My heart breaks for the kids. If it did kind of feel, and again, I'm not making excuses because we certainly, played far from a clean game. But those situations, those 2 in particular were pretty heartbreaking for our guys. As they've feel good about executing something in getting in the end zone and celebrating with their teammates. And again, like I said, not in a disrespectful manner. And for those flags to come out there at that point, it's pretty disheartening.
And this has been the great debate in the sport of football going on now. And I mean, the NFL went through their no fun league era for a while where there were heavy flags and very heavy restrictions on the types of celebrations that were allowed that have since not only been relaxed, but have now almost gone in the other direction where it's encouraged that they do that in order to increase the personality and the entertainment value of a game. You go to the college level, they tend to call that a little more tight in the manner of what they'll allow. But still, there are moments, great moments in a football game. You can't help but celebrate those moments in some capacity. And it's not like it's a choreographed event. It's just something that happens. At the high school level, there's always the debate. It's education-based athletics, sportsmanship above all else. I certainly can understand that. We tried to chronicle that on the broadcast, but there is a point where a spontaneous excitement bubbles over in a player, and we'll ignore the first one for a second and just address the second. And it felt like in that circumstance, given the miraculous nature of the play in and of itself, I said to you before we came on the air, the fact that pass found JV Rodriguez over a defender, seemingly a miracle in and of itself. He makes the catch in stride, gets to the end zone. And the moment, it's come all the way back from all the frustration of the first 3 weeks. And yes, spun a football on the ground. There is a balance that can be struck between being sporting and being able to celebrate success at the same time.
Absolutely, and it's that lack of consistency with some of these. I mean, JV has done that before, and I've talked to him about it before. And this seemed like the most benign out of all the times that well, that's not all the times. It's like twice that he's done it, but definitely put the most benign. Like he's really just putting the ball on the ground. It wasn't in the face of a player. It wasn't taunting anybody. It's he's truly excited that he made a play for his team. With time winding down to get back in this football game. When we've been scratching and clawing the whole time to get some offense going. So JV is a great kid. He's a team first kid all the time, a smile on his face. And it just I felt bad for him because it wasn't for me. At first I wasn't sure how egregious it was, but then going back and watching the video, it's you feel bad for the kid. He's excited about making a play for his team, and really it wasn't a big deal at all. And again, like taking the circumstances that we're in with all the stuff the kids have to deal with, I'm okay with them having a little bit of fun like that, as long as it's not something that's taunting or being disrespectful to the other team or the officials. And I felt like this wasn't disrespectful.
In a judicious nature. It's one of the great powers of officiating, being on the other side of this, and having been on the other side of it, there is a judicious nature that can be applied when you are trying to consider the circumstance, the moment, and what the actual intent of the rule is. We always say we don't write them. Coaches, I mean, there are no officials on any rules committee in any sport anywhere. They are usually at the college level and at the high school level. They are committees filled with coaches. Coaches ultimately write rules, and officials are responsible for enforcing them. That is always the great rub of the circumstance. But there is a part of the officiating genre that requires judgment and application of the rule and judging the moment to meet the rule as it is written. And that's the difficult, I think, balance that people need to understand. So on your perspective and from your end, obviously, there's in the moment and there's where do you go from here, and there's the learning moment. I have to imagine some form of what you will preach from here on out is yes to be thrilled and yes to be happy, and there's a time that you can do that over on the sideline, but quite literally just crossing the goal line, placing it down and walking away from it is about all you have room for at this point in time.
And that's really the choice that we're left with. Score the point, put the ball down, or hand it to the referee, and then come back to the sideline. That's pretty much what it feels like. We have to do moving on, and we'll address it and we'll do it because we stressed today that we're playing for the pack. It's for the whole group, and we have to. And not that I think any of our guys are purposely selfish or anything like that, but in the heat of the moment, sometimes your decision making gets a little bit clouded, and somebody does something that they don't necessarily think of the how that's going to affect the greater group. And we had a talk today in practice about how we need to play for each other and understand how your choices on the field and what you do on the field impacts everybody else. So to make sure that we know that we have each other's back, and we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that we're playing the game the right way, making the right decisions, carrying ourselves the right way. That's been, a goal of our program from day one. And I hate to talk about officiating, to this extent because, really the guys, they're out there doing a thankless job for the most part anyway. And we do appreciate their efforts. And I know it's a really tough position that they get put in a lot of the time because sometimes it feels like you can't make the right call at all. It's just when you talk about it to this extent that we're talking about it today, that's an issue when it comes to a game. You want the officiating to to play a part in the game and be fair. And obviously when you talk about it to this extent, it feels like that maybe they're a little over involved. And again, I don't want to go too in depth with it, but we pride ourselves on being a respectful program, having a great sideline in terms of where our kids are back, our coaches handling themselves. And for the most part, except for maybe a couple instances, this hasn't been an issue at all with our program, since I started coaching here last year.
And you alluded to it a little bit here, and we'll get this question out of the way and then dispense with it and move on. The sideline conversation came up, of course. It's an interesting foul call because the first one, no matter what happens, is a warning. The flag comes out, a warning is issued to the sideline. No penalty enforcement happens at that moment in time. And then subsequent from that warning, there are penalty yardage that is marked off there, and that happened in a couple of circumstances here. Again, just to help people understand when they're looking at the field on the broadcast or hearing us describe it on the radio side of things, you all are allowed to be near the white, on the white, across the white. What's the line of demarcation? Where's the no-fly zone?
It depends on which Friday night that you play on, I guess, sometimes. It hasn't been the most consistent rule, and some guys are a little bit more lenient with it. This crew that we had this last week, obviously not very lenient with it at all. We have the players back off the white, probably 2 or 3 yards back off the white, using that white box for the coaches and the officials, right? The guy who's making the play call, either myself or Coach Murphy with the defensive play calls, wearing the white, but for the most part, we're leaving that lane free for the official to run down, especially with all this COVID protocol, so we can, keep socially distant as much as we can. And as you know, being an official and calling all these games, like through the course of the game, people start to creep up a little bit. Our guys don't do that very much. It's more the coaches. But I thought that our sideline was pretty much following the letter of the law. Like I said, we haven't had any issues aside from this past Friday and maybe another game. That's about it. We've really done a great job, I think, of following those rules on the sideline, and respecting the spaces that are there for the officials and the coaches and whatnot.
Hopefully for all of us, this will be the last time we have to have this conversation as it relates to a game. Absolutely. Let's move on. Let's talk about the offense in this game. It came in bunches. It wasn't something that perhaps was well established and went on long runs. They came in these big moments, and the offense seemed to explode when you seem to need it. Particularly the 2 scoring plays, obviously, are the ones that are going to stand out to people. The pass we alluded to that found J.V. Rodriguez from Caden Constant certainly sticks out in my mind, but J.C. Cora had the big play on the first touchdown opportunity as well. And then there were some big runs that came from scrimmage, but there seemed to be, perhaps, although there were these moments of great success, it lacked that consistency that might have allowed you to say, okay, this is working as we're moving the ball down the field.
Yeah, I think in terms of our continuity on offense, having the 2 shutdowns hasn't helped us in terms of practice time, just getting out there, getting, just the number of reps that we have to get ready. That's caused some inconsistencies for us. Again, not an excuse, because we've had enough time to install what we want to install and run it. But in terms of, it's from the matter of going, from proficient to exemplary in terms of, our time that we've had on the field. So, we're still working there. Like you said, we're starting to see it in flashes. When we get it right, we really get it right. And I think we can be explosive. But sometimes we're 1 block away, we're 1 cut away, we're, a bad snap away from, some of these plays hitting, really, really, really well. And a lot of it is some of the timing, timing from the snap to the mesh, or timing from the, from the pull of the block to the running back getting the ball and getting through the hole. So it's really small details, but that's what we're lacking right now. And that's what our focus is moving forward this week.
As we look at the details, you've lived on about a 60-40 split, and probably your offense tends to be 60-40 run heavy. This particular week, 60-40 pass came to the forefront, and perhaps the connection on the big plays may skew our scientific numbers, so to speak. But there had to be something you were seeing, and certainly it was what was working, moving the ball down the field.
Yeah, we're starting to get enough time, and Caden's a pretty mobile kid, obviously. So he's able to get out of the pocket and create a little bit. And we thought we had an advantage, with our receivers against their secondary. But we also thought we'd be able to block up and run the football pretty well. And kudos to them. They did a good job of game planning against us, and not allowing us to hit the runs as vertical as we'd like to hit them. I think we popped a couple there. I know Voshan had a really good run. But we didn't, like you said, we weren't able to do that on a consistent basis like we wanted to. And once we get down towards the end of the game there with Shrewsbury making some big plays and staying on the field and chewing up the clock, we really needed to get some chunk plays and move the ball down the field pretty quickly. And our guys responded when we asked them to do that. Not pretty all the time, but we have a lot of great athletes on this football team, and some great playmakers. And when we asked them to go out there and do it, they came through with it.
Let's tie that on to what the Colonials perhaps did in order to put you in some of those circumstances. They seem to do a couple of things really well. You had mentioned time of possession being such an important factor going into this game. They masterfully seem to manage placing you in both distance and time deficits as you were trying to set up offensive situations going down the field. So certainly, I think when you look particularly at the last sequence of the game, you were put in a very difficult circumstance and you were able to move the football despite all of that. That certainly has to feel like something that you overcame in the process.
Sure. I think it was, a mental kind of block and a kind of a confidence block. We were able to kind of go out there and make some of those plays with our back against the wall a little bit too. So, I think it'll help build our confidence moving forward. I just wish we had more games to play to keep going. The fact that it is a shorter season and we don't really have a lot of time to waste to get to that point. And the kids understand that. So we need to get a lot better, a lot quicker now too. But like Coach Aloisi is a smart coach, and they really did a great job of mixing up their run and pass. And we hadn't seen them pass too much at all this season. They've been pretty heavy run, and only really pass when they've needed to. But they did a good job of, with play action on third down or second and short, and picking up those first downs. And not huge, like some of them maybe chunk plays, but enough were just enough to move the sticks and stay in bounds and keep the clock going. Like it was, they really did a good job of mixing up their play calling and kind of keeping us off balance. We played the run really, really well. And I think they just got just enough out of stuff to, like I said, to stay on the field and keep that clock moving. But it was nice to see that, we do have the ability to score quick, if need be. And, maybe we need to start the game, in that type of fashion as well too, so it's really looking at, I think we grew a lot as a team in terms of knowing what our capabilities are. Now we need to go out there, just take the next step and trust it and play with a little bit more confidence, that we can execute those plays.
You alluded to it moments ago, and we're kind of dealing with this game maybe a little inside out or right to left in fashion, but we'll stay with the theme here. You mentioned the very beginning of the football game. How aware were you that the only reason the ball crossed the 50-yard line in the first half of the game, first quarter of the game in particular, was because the first quarter changed to the second quarter? The entirety of the first quarter was literally played on your half of the field.
Yeah, and that's something that happened in the first game against Shepherd Hill again, for us too. And we got to find a way to move the ball and get that first down. Especially if we get the ball, we get the ball with the opening kickoff. We got to get some rhythm, and pick up that first down. It's a tough spot for us to be backed up there and ask our punter to dig us out of a hole and flip the field position there. It's obviously not an ideal situation. And, we just need to start faster. We're a little bit slow to kind of feel things out a little bit and to gain some confidence. And that's on me as a coach in terms of our preparation, making sure that our guys are comfortable going to, we're giving them the right looks for the defense during scout team during the week so that when they get out there, it's something that's familiar. They know how to handle it. And that's something, me as an offensive coach has to do a better job of organizing. I can't say enough about our defense. Our defense is, the heart of our team right now. And, I think our offensive mentality now has to match that of our defense in terms of, being an aggressive attacking, type of offense. And I think we're getting to that point. Obviously still work to do, and especially in that first and second quarter.
Oh, no question about that. Leominster drops a tough 14-12 decision to Shrewsbury. The Colonials get their first win of this 2021 wedge campaign. Blue Devils still in search of that first win. Perhaps week 4 will be the week. Let's look at the standings in pod number 1 through 3 weeks. Wachusett is that 3-0 team. They won the battle of 2-0s against Doherty, and they won it in decisive fashion, hanging a 30-plus point victory on top of Doherty in that process. That drops Doherty into a tie in second place with their first loss with Shepherd Hill, who finds themselves at 2-1. through the first 3 weeks of this modified season. Shrewsbury with the win now stands alone in the 4th position at 1-2. Leominster and Algonquin round out the bottom, tied with an 0-2 mark. We'll keep right on going here with the upcoming schedule for this week for Leominster. At Wachusett closes out the road sequence of this 2021 wedge campaign. And then there is the week 5 battle against Doherty at Doyle Field. Coach, of course, the schedule we've talked about week to week. There, people are looking for the possibility of additions. Everyone would love to see another game down the road, particularly the possibility of a 139th meeting between Leominster and Fitchburg. I know not a ton to share. If we did, I would already hopefully know. But are you guys still out there and actively looking either for another game or for a possibility to get Fitchburg back on this schedule? If not, obviously in that 6th week, perhaps in the 7th.
Well, I think at the very least, with having that last week open, I'm pretty optimistic that we'll have a game that last week on the 23rd of April. As far as the 139th meeting, I'm not positive how that's going to go. And I know that if there's a will, there's a way here. But we obviously want to be respectful of the spring sports and not go into their season, as they had the whole season taken away from them last year. So, it's a tough situation. But I know that if there's a way to get it done, with keeping all parties happy, that we'll absolutely get it done. But again, I have no more information on that than what we had last time, which is 0 anyway. So
I was going to say, this is where we stand at the moment. If you were available this week, your arch rival is also open. As we look at the upcoming games around the region for week 4, starting first in Pod, Algonquin travels to Shrewsbury on Friday night, and then we hop over to Pod 2, where Tantasco travels to Grafton, Oakmont to Westboro, Marlborough at Neshoba, and the aforementioned Fitchburg Red Raiders were scheduled to travel to North Middlesex. As of 4 p.m. today, Fitchburg and North Middlesex no longer playing. North Middlesex, no announced reason. We can speculate they're potentially the 6th COVID protocol team in Central Massachusetts through the first 4 weeks of the season, but that would be speculation that has not been announced by North Middlesex nor Fitchburg, who, as of 4 p.m., has published via Twitter that they are looking for a game that they are willing to travel to in this 4th week of the season. Be the 2nd time, obviously, in 3 weeks for them that they would be shopping for a game. So we'll see how that develops. We will keep an eye on that. And then on the Saturday slate, one game in particular of note is also here in Pod number 1. Shepherd Hill travels to Doherty. That game is on Saturday in that matchup as well. And so let's turn our attention to week 4 action. Leominster and Wachusett. And Coach, you get the White Hot Mountaineers, who have started this season out 3-0. On the offensive side of the field, it is wing T football, but it's served up a little bit differently maybe than you've seen in the first couple of weeks, and more of that double wing formation. It's true wing T with a straight line backfield, 3 receivers lined up there, quarterback up under center, and then it's distribution time. From the snap, everybody goes in a direction, and you've got to find the ball carrier here. And right now, they have a 3-headed attack, but it's 3-headed by committee, as there is a multitude of backs that possibly could stand in one of those 3 positions.
Yeah, they have a lot of weapons. They really do. And they've started the season off real well. They look like a well-oiled machine already in mid-season form. It's a testament to their coaching staff and their system and what they do through the youth leagues up to that. You could really tell that the kids are putting a lot of time with it, and they know it inside and out. And the quarterback too has been sneaky good. Tucker McDonald, he's I think he's a really good player. He's shown some great poise and the ability to make some deep passes down the field. And they'll go to spread too. They'll spread you out a little bit and make you play the whole field too. So not only do you have to you have to prepare for the possibility of all the backs getting it, in a multitude of different looks. You also have to prepare for the quarterback, with the ability to throw the ball down the field too. So it presents a huge challenge for us, probably the biggest challenge in terms of, play variation, that we're going to see. Shrewsbury is pretty run heavy at that time. I mean, you always know that, Shepherd Hill is going to be run heavy. But Wachusett, while I think they would like to, go ahead and line up and just push us off the ball, they have the ability to spread it out and throw it around too. So it presents a pretty, a pretty significant problem for us to try to figure out and try to align to.
So that means in part you're talking on the defensive side of the ball, it's assignment football. You've got to maintain who you're responsible for, but at the same time, you're also planning to expect the unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, they really can throw a lot at you, and they're really sound in what they do. So, again, assignment football. We can't get caught up, in the moment. We have to know, situation wise, we have to know. We have to be aware of who's in the football game. We have to be aware of, how they're aligning. They force you to look at all that stuff, and we're really going to have to be in the moment of each play. To make sure that we are, aligned correctly and are, in a good spot to play whatever they throw at us. Not an easy task, by any means.
Let's flip over to your side of the football. Talk about the offense. And I know week to week, as we've been talking both on air and off, there's been the debate: how much, how fast, how much can you add and implement? And I know from the access that you allow me that you are going to make some additions this week. We aren't going to talk about what, but I did enjoy a very instructive PowerPoint on what it is that you are going to walk the players through. What ultimately led to your decision that now was the time? What have you seen from your team that says, yep, they can manage adding this piece to the conversation?
Well, I think it's just a natural progression of where we're at right now offensively too. It's just being able to put, our best players on the field, and kind of maybe give them something that that they might not be comfortable lining up to as well, and kind of seeing what opportunities that presents for us. So we'll go ahead and see, how they play it. They have a very aggressive attacking defense, and watching, and they adjust very well to what you do. So we're going to have answers once they do adjust to, whatever we throw at it, whatever we want to do. If we find a hole and something's working, we hit it a couple times, they're going to shut it down. They are really good at adjusting. They know how their system works. They know how the pieces move around and what needs to happen. So we're going to have counters. Offensively, we're going to have to be on our toes. We're going to have to, see when changes come in and adapt when we can. They're aggressive. They get after it too. Noah Calorie from Doherty last week, probably, one of the best players in Central Mass. Had a breakout game against Shrewsbury the week before. Doherty started the game on fire. I think they ripped off 13 unanswered points, but after that, they were shut down the rest of the game. And that's a testament to Wachusett's defensive staff. And they run a good scheme, and they give you a lot to think about and a lot to look at and a lot to account for. So, we're hoping that we can do enough to get some significant points on the board and keep pace with what they want to do. And I think it's going to be a great football game. I think we do match up well. I'll take our defense against any offense in Central Mass any day. And offensively, I think we're on the cusp of becoming a very good offense.
And with that said, we talked about in the first segment, the big playability that your offense has had to this point, where it's brought up a lot of big plays. It's made those big plays possible. It's struggled with its consistency. At times, do you maybe worry a little bit that it almost feels like being a basketball team that relies on the three-pointer on a night of the NCAA basketball championship, where you have to live and die by the three, meaning if you're hitting the shots, that's great. And if you're not, it makes things a lot more difficult in order to be able to execute what your philosophy is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know if my heart can take that too much. I create consistency and balance, in my own personal life, and that bleeds over to my football life and coaching. I obviously like to be able to move the ball, multiple. I don't want to have to rely on, taking that 3-step drop and throwing that ball down the field too many times. I mean, obviously, you like to do it where you feel like you're in control and you have the rhythm of the game and not trying to claw from behind. So we like to take those shots when it's advantageous for us and not when it's an absolute necessity for us. So hopefully we can control the line of scrimmage a little bit and give ourselves some situations with positive field position where we can do some of that stuff, because I do feel like we have the playmakers that can do it. But in order to take those shots at the best opportunities, That depends on field position, that depends on score, that depends on time, that depends on, obviously the defensive scheme that we're going against. So all those things factor into it, but we got to get more consistent with, our running game and our shorter passing game. We certainly don't want to rely on having to throw the ball 40 yards downfield, consistently, because, percentage wise, that's not a way to live offensively.
When you look at the game coaching, there's always different times where moments present themselves where you see things maybe breaking in your favor, or maybe you see that maybe something different could come out of the football game than you've had happen already. What will you be looking for? What's going to be the thing that you're going to try to see and find in your team, whether it's in the early going or by a crucial moment in the game, that's going to make the difference in your being able to be successful on Friday night?
Well, I think we have to try to find a chink in the armor in our run game, offensively. I think we gotta test their front and their linebackers. I mean, I think we've struggled the last couple of weeks of picking up linebackers, and linebackers, especially the interior linebackers. They've been big factors in disrupting our run game. So I think we gotta find a way to control them a little bit better and get a hat on them. And if we can do that in the core, in the B gaps and in that core part of the defense, and we can find a chink there and, maybe, pick up some significant yardage, that's really, a telltale sign for me that, we can get into a rhythm offensively. And, when we're able to do that, we're able to, to branch out and to run some different things off of that. But we really need to try to control in between the B gaps and, and try to make a living in there a little bit too.
Indeed, we will be looking for it. Leominster travels to Wachusett on Friday night to battle the Mountaineers. K-Zone has your coverage, AM 1280, 105.3 FM, WPKZstream.com. Following the Red Sox road opener at Baltimore is where that game is scheduled. We'll be on as soon as that game wraps up, hoping in time for our newly expanded 6:20 countdown to kickoff on Friday night. If Major League Baseball can get an under 4-hour baseball game pulled in on Friday. AM 1280, 105.3 FM, WPKZstream.com. 6:20 for your K-Zone countdown to kickoff, newly expanded. Leominster TV will be along. Their coverage will join in simulcast beginning at 10 minutes to the top of the hour on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 32, and streaming online at leominster.tv for the television simulcast of this one. Looking forward to it. Coach, Hal Lane Field, the site, passes only once again, but we're getting closer and closer and closer to the days where maybe we will see, come the fall, something that looks a little bit more normal.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that day.
Indeed, aren't we all? As we look toward the next week and the Week 5 edition of Coach's Corner here on Rivalry Family Media, preempted once again next Monday night for volleyball action over the next couple of weeks. Look for the Coach's Corner later on in the schedule. Information available, facebook.com/media rivalry for the rescheduled later edition of the Coach's Corner coming next week. For Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins saying thank you so very much for joining us. And until next time, here on the Coach's Corner, so long, everybody.